Hey man, welcome to the Secret Habit Podcast. Shawn here. I am so grateful for this episode that you're going to see with Drew Boa from Husband Material. He's a very good friend of mine. We've done work together for many years now, and he's a legend in the field of helping men outgrow porn. That's his newest book. It is phenomenal in the realm of insights, research, and practicality because this podcast is all about getting below this idea of managing your struggle with porn. It's all about understanding what's beneath it and actually healing the real problem. So, guys go from confusion to clarity, from coping to regulating, from fear to confidence, and ultimately from sobriety to real freedom. And Drew is all about that. I've watched him develop an incredible community of thousands of men writing books, creating curriculums, and ultimately he's helped countless guys. He's trained countless leaders, and to have him on this show is such a privilege. So, what you're about to hear on outgrowing porn, getting into fantasies and triggers and arousal and understanding your story, this idea of collaborating with your sexuality, it is powerful. You're going to be forever changed. And I just pray that it blesses you as much as Drew has blessed me. So enjoy this episode. We drop new episodes on Mondays and Fridays every morning of those days so that you can start your week off with intention and end it well also. So enjoy the episode with Drew Boa from Husband Material. Hey, Drew, welcome to the Secret Habit Podcast. It's a joy to have you here, man.
Thanks, Shawn. Let's do this.
Yeah, it's such a special thing for me to host you, and we've had a long-term friendship. And just to kick things off, Drew, you just wrote Outgrow Porn, an incredible feat, something that I really admire about you, man. Yes, there's the book. We'll talk more about it, but man, like writing that book and the work that you do, why are you passionate about helping men, even this quote, outgrow porn? What a great term.
Because even after I reached 1 year without porn, which was a huge milestone for me, I relapsed and felt like I was back at the very beginning. I was sexually acting out more than I ever had in years. And I realized that porn still had power over me. And as long as I was fighting a battle against it, I was stuck in the cycle, even if that
Mm,
cycle was a lot longer and more drawn out.
yeah.
And I wanted to get to the bottom of it. I really wanted not just sobriety, but I wanted lasting freedom, and I wanted the kind of healing that meant that my wife, or my future wife at that time,
Mm,
wouldn't have to worry
yeah.
about secret sexual
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah. Wow.
So that is what led me to a journey
Hmm.
that took me way deeper into my story than I thought. As Eddie Caparucci says, the road to recovery goes through your childhood.
Yeah.
And when I
Wow.
started to take that journey, um, everything changed, and I've been free from porn for the last 10 years.
Yeah. 10
I
years.
guess
Amazing.
11 years
Yeah.
now.
Wow.
And that is why I wrote Outgrow Porn,
Yeah.
because I want more people to have that.
Yeah. Such a gift. 11 years is a big deal. And one thing I know about you, Drew, is as much as we are in the similar boat, like freedom is what we're getting at. That idea of outgrowing porn is much bigger than just the management, just trying and hoping it stays good. Like I notice about your theory and your approach and even some of the training I went through with you, it's really about growth and character and capacity. And that's one thing I've just always admired. And maybe if I could ask, and this might be weaved into the whole episode here, but what are like two or three things that were the biggest difference makers in your healing journey? Maybe if we were going to say not so much of your story, but like what were two or three things that was like, this changed everything? You mentioned like the road of recovery is through childhood. Like what were two or three things that's just like when I learned this, when this changed for me, that was a catalyst to actually outgrowing porn?
When I realized that my sexual fantasies and the fetish that was always my focus in porn actually were not random,
Mm,
but stemmed from stunted sexual development. Whew, that that really, really launched me into a new level of freedom because I didn't hate myself so much. And I started to have self compassion because I saw that it wasn't the mature, adult, healthy Drew that has these really strong sexual urges and impulses. It was 13-year-old Drew.
Mm.
And so I needed to get to know that boy. And that's the thesis of Outgrow Porn is that you
Hmm.
have to heal the boy to free the man.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. And was that a big part of your story, Drew? Was like 13-year-old season of life was a big catalyst to a lot of the conditioning and the forming of an addiction?
Yes, and I think that's the case for many of
Yeah.
us while going through puberty. But for
Yeah.
me, it was the worst time of my life. It
Mm.
was a time when my family moved from Toronto, a place that I loved and a place where I felt like I belonged, to Texas. I lost my whole world and I started to spend more and more time alone, shut
Mm.
away in my bedroom, watching porn, playing video games.
Yeah.
That was literally the best part of my day,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
saying something. It's actually quite sad to
Yeah.
think about. That's where all of this started.
Hmm.
And like that period of time is when I sexually imprinted
Mm.
onto the images and videos that would stay with me for the next 10 years.
Hmm.
And ultimately, it's not like they're completely gone, but they've lost
Yeah.
their power.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk more about that because that's a powerful idea. Someone might have just heard that. What does that mean? So we'll come back to that. But what you're getting at, Drew, is profound for me. And when I work with guys, the idea of, hey, we moved when we were 13. Yeah, it wasn't easy, but hey, that's just part of life. Mom and dad had to do it. That's just what happens in life. So why does understanding our story matter so much? And how does somebody actually gather data from a story like that and realize, there's something there that isn't just, yeah, like that's life. There's actually something there to explore and realize that there's
Mhm.
wounding.
This is a really important point. What makes an experience traumatic is not how severe or extreme it was.
Mm.
It's it's actually how much of the experience was processed or unprocessed. So if I have a wound on my knee, let's say I scrape my knee, um, it might not be a terribly deep wound, but if it never gets cleaned out and it gets infected, and over the years, like that knee has never healed, like it is going to be a major problem
Mm-hmm.
later
Mm-hmm.
on. And so we
Yeah.
get into this trap of comparing our stories and saying, oh, it wasn't that bad. This is just life. But when we do that, we dismiss and minimize the very real damage that we carry. And we all
Yeah.
carry various
Yeah.
levels of wounding. We did not grow up in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so the the key is that when experiences are unprocessed, they often get sexualized.
Mm.
And what do I mean by unprocessed?
Yeah.
Well, let's
Yeah.
say something horrible happened and I never felt safe to talk about it with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And shame crept in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then that shame got infected and it turned into self-contempt and
Yeah.
self-hatred. And then in the absence of safe people and good resources, like that that
Mm.
grew and grew eventually into an addiction. That is the story for
Yeah.
so many of us when it comes to
Yeah.
sex and sexuality. We
Yeah.
didn't have the tools, we didn't have the teaching we needed. And when porn came in, it was
Mm.
a predator that exploited us. It was actually abusive to us, but we didn't know
Yeah.
how to talk about it. We didn't have anywhere to go. And so that got infected.
Yeah.
And so
Mm.
like this is part of what we
Yeah.
need to unpack so that we can heal as adults.
Yeah. 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 I really hope that's a visual that can help guys realize the subtlety, like a small scrape on your knee can become infected if it's not dealt with correctly. So For you, you mentioned the like a painful experience that goes unprocessed. Like if somebody thinks, "Hey, moving, yeah, it was hard, but I wouldn't really consider it painful." How do you help somebody understand that challenge of them wrapping their head around the fact that it's not so much the event itself that might have been catastrophic, but it's
Mhm.
the place where maybe mom and dad just said, "Hey, dad has to work, Drew, like that's just life, sorry, buddy." Like, do you notice that that's the common wound for somebody? Is it just got dismissed?
Yeah, some of the major categories that we need to consider include abandonment, so the lack of care or emotional connection in order to dress the wound, so to speak. Enmeshment, which could be its whole podcast.
Yeah,
um,
seriously.
but that's really when a relationship exists to meet the needs of the parent rather than the child,
Mm,
and that's its own madness and abuse.
yeah.
And I'm getting
Mm,
some of these categories from Jay Stringer, from the Allender
yeah.
Center.
Yeah.
Um, but those are some
Mm,
of the primary themes that that are worth exploring. And
yeah.
there's been
Yeah.
so much great literature written on trauma in the past 10 years. One of the most helpful ideas, I think, comes from Bessel van der Kolk. This is
Hmm.
actually more than 10 years ago, but
Yeah.
he said trauma is not what happens to us, it's what happens within us.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
In other words, it's not the hurricane, it's not the fire, it's the impact of these things
Yeah.
that we carry in our bodies.
Wow.
And that has a huge effect on how we approach this whole healing adventure, because
Yeah.
two people can go through the exact same thing.
Mm.
Let's say uh, moving internationally,
Yeah.
and for one they're totally fine and the other one is completely devastated,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, because it impacted them differently.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned in the podcast I heard you with Eddie Caparucci about the boy behind the curtain idea. Sounds like that would be a good time to mention that. I'd love to hear you talk a bit more about that because it's just a very powerful visual and tying more into, I believe, that idea of these stories or pain points maybe losing their power, starting to have more compassion or understanding towards
Mm.
what's really going on there. Do you mind explaining that and casting an image for people listening to this about that the boy behind the curtain?
Yeah, well, I used to be very intimidated by the images and videos that appealed to me
Hmm.
in porn or even on social media. um, they just seemed like so overpowering, um, magical rather than manageable.
Wow.
And the way that I see that now is kind of like in The Wizard of Oz, when
Mm,
Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion, they, they've heard so much about this wonderful, mighty, powerful Oz.
mm,
And then eventually, when they get into his castle, they see this huge, intimidating figure, and through a happy accident, they find out that behind the curtain it was this little man
mm.
who was hiding behind this
Yeah.
huge,
Wow.
powerful mirage, this
Yeah.
illusion.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I see my sexual fantasies. They're this grand illusion.
Mm.
They symbolize something to my heart. And I
Yeah.
think that's true for every person, that the things that sexually arouse us the most are not about sex.
Yeah.
They're about symbolism. They're
Mm.
representing something to us. Could be safety,
Yes.
connection, the removal of shame,
Yeah.
acceptance. And so these types of things are the big grand illusion, but underneath it, behind it all,
Mm.
for the men who I work with
Yeah.
specifically, there's a little boy who needs to be loved.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Mm.
there's a baby boy
Yeah.
with preverbal trauma.
Wow.
And it's not just my inner child, it could be my inner infant, or it could be
Yeah.
my inner teenager, and he can be hard to
Sure.
get to know
Sure.
too. So that reframe changes
Mm-hmm.
everything because I'm no longer trying to fight a battle against this
Yeah.
huge, like, monster that's always
Yeah.
going to win.
Yeah.
I'm learning how to befriend my sexuality.
Mm.
And I'm
Yeah.
learning how to pull the curtain back and see what's underneath there. Who's in there? This is a
Yeah.
part of me that needs kindness.
Mm-hmm.
It needs
Mm-hmm.
to be seen, heard, soothed, cherished, delighted in, supported. And when we have those attachment needs met, we no longer seek them
Yeah.
in unhealthy ways.
Yeah.
That's a
So good,
huge,
man.
huge difference with the outgrow porn approach. It's
Yeah.
it's not focused on the sexual surface symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
We're finding out what are the unmet needs
Yeah. Yeah.
that are affecting me right now,
Yes.
and when those are increasingly fulfilled, then I can start to detach
Mm.
from porn.
Yes.
I say porn is not always an addiction, but it's an attachment.
Mm. Yeah.
We have become attached to porn over years or
Mm.
decades.
Yeah.
And in order to detach, we need to
Yeah.
reattach with God,
Amen.
people we can trust, and
Yeah.
even with ourselves.
Yeah. So good. Yeah. That impacts me a lot. And just for people listening, if they don't know this, Drew and I go back to a place where, I was really inspired by Drew. We did training
Mm.
together. I've noticed the way you've really taken on that message, and it's so hopeful. It's so inviting. It makes me think of like First Corinthians 13, which is often
Hmm.
the Valentine's verse, but Paul's basically saying, if you don't speak the truth with love, you just sound like a gong. And what I hear you saying, Drew, is it's not some battle to fight. It's a actual heart to heal and something of that nature. It just speaks to me because that's been my journey.
Yeah. And there is a battle.
Sure, but
Like,
not the everyman's
evil
battle.
is real. Yeah, it's not the everyman's battle that I grew up with.
Yeah.
Um, it's not a battle
Yeah.
against our sexuality. It's a battle
Mm.
against evil.
Yeah.
It's a battle
Yes.
for our sexuality. That's good that
Mm.
God created. And the
Yes.
the motivation, I find,
Yeah.
is really where we need to focus. So rather than being motivated by fear
Mm-hmm.
or shame or control,
Yeah.
being motivated by love,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
curiosity, and compassion,
Yeah. Yeah.
that will take us so much further.
Yeah. Yeah. And Drew, I'm just curious, when you say the word compassion, do you ever find guys are confused by that idea and maybe the word understanding helps them to gauge what you're getting at? Because sometimes that word for like very conservative Christianity, it's like that doesn't resonate with me. So sometimes I'll use the term understanding, which often just has compassion built into it. But I'm just curious your take on that.
The reason I don't usually use the word understanding is because, to me, it sounds very left brain,
Mm,
like logic, reason,
sure.
and analysis, clear thinking. These things are important, but it's not the logical, reasonable part of you that keeps going back to porn.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
it's more of the right brain, it's more of the emotional, imaginative, passionate, wild part
Mm.
of you that
Yeah.
has this
Yeah.
attachment with unwanted behaviors. And um, so that's why I think understanding is great. Self-awareness is essential and incomplete
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
revealing does not always equal healing.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea
Yeah.
of compassion, even just the word compassion, really engages the emotions and the heart because
Yeah.
it's the word um, passion, like the
Yeah.
passion of the Christ. It means
Yeah.
suffering,
Yeah.
and calm means with. So suffering with.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
compassion. It's the person who suffers with you
Yeah.
when you're in a
Yeah.
deep, dark place. The person who sits beside you and says, I will not leave you. I am going to stay here with you. I'm not
Mm.
going to try to solve you or solve this or
Yeah.
fix you or correct you. And and that is what the little boy within each of us needs. He needs
Mm.
the loving, safe adult he never had to not just say, let me tell you how you're broken and give you some understanding. It's,
Yeah.
I'm with you
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that is a little taste of how Jesus relates to
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
and what we see throughout the Bible. And the Bible calls him the father of all compassion. And and that
Yeah.
means that he's not aloof. He's
Mm.
not indifferent. He is completely with us in
Yeah.
whatever we're going through.
Yeah. Yeah.
The expression on his face is tender and kind.
Mm.
His voice is gentle and powerful
Mm.
at the same time.
Yeah.
And when we start to get in touch with that, the
Yeah.
real God, the real Jesus, and also our true self, man, there's nothing quite like it.
Yeah. It's powerful. Yeah. Yeah. Second Corinthians 1 has become one of my favorite scriptures.
Mm.
Yeah. Source of all comfort as we suffer with Christ, which often feels like from a conservative Christian standpoint of like white knuckling, going through hard things, but to actually like what you're saying, compassion, like to actually experience Jesus in our pain in a different
Yeah,
way.
there's a great book. I just interviewed the author called Try Softer.
Hmm.
It's by Andy Kolber. The
Hmm.
idea is that instead of trying harder, which involves like being
Yeah.
tough,
Yeah. Yeah.
stereotypically
Try softer.
masculine,
Yeah.
um, try softer
Hmm.
means I'm going to um, reconnect
Hmm.
with my body, with my emotions,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
with the the posture of like a mother or a father with their baby.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
uh,
So good.
rather than um, a harsh,
Yeah.
critical,
Yeah.
condemning tone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even the truth of the gospel can be preached to ourselves with
Yeah.
that tone
Yeah.
of of like
Hmm.
I don't know what to
Yeah.
call it. Just something less than the love of God.
Yeah. Yeah. I call it bumper sticker Christianity.
Mm.
It's just these hype bumper stickers or these like motivational little texts that are supposed to pump you up and kick your butt, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And we don't need bumper stickers. We need Jesus Christ.
Mhm.
Powerful man. Let's segue into something that's so important. And I love the way you communicate this, Drew. Talk about the difference between triggers and arousal. Let's start to
Mm.
bridge that gap because that's just monumental the way you communicate that. I think there's just a light bulb moments that guys are about to have. So please share about triggers and arousal.
Yeah. Well, a trigger is any event that creates an automatic reaction. And that's as simple as turning on a light switch and the lights turn on. But within us, it's also the way that maybe certain types of people might turn us on, or certain types of feelings might turn us off. They're automatic reactions. They happen every day. And sometimes they are disproportionate to the moment.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it's a clue that I'm being triggered. I'm not just angry. I'm not just anxious. I'm not just aroused.
Yeah.
This is an extreme reaction, and a simple way to say that: if it's hysterical, it's historical. So if an emotion is not just difficult, it's intolerable.
Wow.
Okay, there could be more underneath that. If a certain sexually attractive person is not just interesting but irresistible. Whew, okay,
Yeah.
this is some kind of trigger. This is activating something within me.
Yeah.
And it could be the 18-year-old me, the 13-year-old me, the 5-year-old me.
Yeah.
And so arousal is our response to triggers. It could be sexual arousal. It could just be emotional in the sense of hyper arousal, like, oh, I'm really tense and charged up and I can't calm down, or hypo arousal, like I'm numb, I'm escaping, I'm zoning out. And those are the states in which porn provides a sexualized solution to whatever we're feeling. It's not the problem primarily. It's the solution that we have learned to depend on as boys. And so this is really important to understand. Like, we have these triggers that we can't control. Yeah, we can probably take some steps to remove ourselves from triggering situations and environments, but triggers will happen. So rather than viewing them as threats, we can view them as trailheads. Internal family systems talks about this. Our triggers can become trailheads and opportunities for healing when we start to think about, when have I felt this way before? When have I felt the opposite? And when we start to dig into these triggers, we find a lot of times trauma. We find parts of our stories that are unprocessed, as we were talking about before. And so it becomes an invitation to really get to know ourselves better and to heal what's underneath. So there's this other difference, though, but not just between triggers and arousal, but between arousal and desire. So
Let's talk about that, please.
it's really life-changing. So arousal is a surface level physical reaction in my body. Desire is what my heart longs for. And this is so important for everyone to understand. But in this context, it means that the things that I find sexually arousing, perhaps in porn, don't actually tell me what I want. Just because it arouses me doesn't mean I want it, doesn't mean I desire it, doesn't even mean I like it necessarily. It just means I'm reacting to it.
Okay.
And so whether it's an experience of abuse that was arousing, or if it's a type of porn that I truly don't desire, but it's arousing, like, that's so freeing to say, well, that's my arousal, but it's not my desire. My desire might be something like adventure, affirmation, to be pursued. I've got a list of 40 desires in the book, Outgrow Porn. And those are just a few of them. Those are the things I was created for. And oftentimes my arousal is connected to those desires. And it's promising to fulfill those desires, but it's not what I desire. So on the flip side, I can say, I desire my wife, for example, even when I don't feel aroused by her. Doesn't mean I don't want her or like her or love her. I desire freedom,
Yeah.
even when I don't feel like it. And there's a lot of times when I
Yeah.
don't feel like it.
Hmm.
So like understanding this difference opens up
Yeah.
an amazingly empowering way of
Wow.
talking about this stuff,
Yeah. So much.
especially for anyone whose sexual attractions go against your values.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I can say, yep, that's my arousal, but that's not my desire.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you're saying there, Drew, is when somebody says, I'm watching this stuff, but I would never think about doing that in person, or same-sex attraction, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautifully said, man. It's a big passion of how I communicate. And I love the way you just shared that. It just really touches my heart because we need more
Yeah.
guys who grasp this stuff.
I'm really thankful to Doug Carpenter for introducing me to that language.
Wow.
He is a specialist in working with survivors
Yeah.
of sexual abuse. And I would argue that anyone who encountered porn as a child is a survivor of sexual abuse
Mm.
because
Wow.
it vandalizes our sexuality
Mm-hmm.
and imposes arousal that may have never been there without porn.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a lot of my passion for this approach because
Yeah.
I think
Huge.
there are a lot of approaches out there that in some ways are are not actually dealing with
Mm-hmm.
the abuse and
Wow.
the arousal.
Wow.
They're just focused on habits or they're focused on mindset.
Yeah.
And that's not bad,
Yeah.
but it doesn't always get to the very core.
Yeah. Yeah. You've used the word already, incomplete. Maybe that would be a
Mhm.
way to say that. It's
Or
part of the
limited.
puzzle, limited. Yeah. Yeah. You talked about like desexualizing. That was it's part of your book, that amazing
Hmm.
podcast with Eddie. And it seems like that's what you're getting at here as we start to realize the arousal, the deeper desire. Is that part of desexualizing this, Drew? Is there a little bit more to that?
Yeah, this idea of desexualizing our desires is one that I wrote about in the book. I've never heard anyone else talk about it in the same
Mm-hmm.
way,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people will understand what I mean when I say that
Yeah.
um, like as I share my deepest darkest secrets in a safe group and I find that I am accepted,
Mm.
the sexual fantasies that symbolize acceptance
Mm-hmm.
feel like they just don't have the same hold on me. I simply don't need them anymore because that desire for acceptance has been met in a non-sexual way.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
can try to meet it sexually forever and ever and it's still going to feel empty.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I find the real thing in real
Mm.
relationships, like
Yeah.
I've got what I needed. It's completing what was incomplete in my story.
So good.
And I don't think we ever fully arrive or reach some kind of final destination with that.
Yeah.
But wow,
Mm.
we can we can grow and heal and find redemption way beyond where we thought was possible.
Yeah, I love to say that that's what makes life colorful again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. Mm. Yeah, I think I just need to like rest in that for a moment. That's just such a valuable insight. So much of pornography is created around these wounds to be accepted, to be
Yeah, and
pursued, to
that's
be
why the
wanted.
uh the cover of my book has a
Yeah,
pacifier on it.
yes. This will be on
The idea is
YouTube, so anyone who can
mhm,
watch this, you'll see, or we'll link below Drew's amazing book.
right. I actually bought an adult pacifier on Amazon, which is really great uh, visceral visual for
Yeah,
this. Um,
yeah.
Porn is not primarily a problem. It is the solution we found in childhood. And like a pacifier, it's a fake nipple.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow.
It's a counterfeit source of nurture,
Yeah.
nourishment that ultimately leaves us feeling more empty. I almost called the book "Drop the Pacifier."
Drop the pacifier.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
because porn gets its power from unprocessed experiences and pain that
Yeah.
we don't know we have or we don't want to face. And
Hmm.
so the more that we process our pain,
Wow.
the more that we grow up
Yeah.
emotionally, we can drop the pacifier.
Yeah. Huh. Oh man, yeah. When you like showed that visual of how big that pacifier is, it's just almost a symbol of how the pacifier grows over time, right? Like guys
Mm-hmm.
get into prostitution, they get into things they never thought they would do. It's just
Yeah.
so tragic, and it plays in everything you've already been talking about.
And behind the curtain,
The curtain,
there's a
yeah.
little boy with unmet needs.
Wow, wow. Yeah. Well, Drew, I'll say this. This is something that I've been saying a lot lately, and a lot of the learning I had from you and work that we did together just helped me to develop this idea that when we figure out what our heart is longing for, we begin to stop facing porn as this thing that is bad and evil and sinful, which it is. But what a great conviction to develop to say that this pornography or masturbation will never make me feel accepted or reassured or
Yeah.
nurtured. I've just noticed guys really love that type of conviction.
Yes. Yeah. It's not based on shame.
Yeah.
It's based on identity. Like,
Yeah.
porn is not who I am.
Yeah.
I'm God's beloved son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the pacifier, the porn, the unwanted behaviors might seem like what I desire, but it's actually deprivation. It's
Mm.
settling for scraps
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of real food.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so outgrowing porn is not restricting or repressing our desires.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not dampening our desires. It's deepening them
Yeah. Deepening them.
so that we can feel satisfied in
Mm.
our souls.
Yeah. Mm.
That's the life I want, man. That's why we do this, right?
Yeah. Yes. And that is all throughout scripture that's available. Yeah. Amen to that, Drew. I want to get really practical because some of the things you're saying are just profound and so powerful. When guys actually get triggered, when they are overwhelmed, what are some things that you teach guys to do to quickly come back to a regulated state or a baseline? I think you talked about wave surfing, if I remember if that was the term you used. It was awesome. Talk about that because that's so helpful in practicality's sake when guys just bump up against something that we all know you're going to bump up against. So I'd love for you to share about that, Drew.
My thoughts on this come from a lot of frustration that the moment when I'm most likely to use porn, when I'm triggered, tempted, not in my right mind, is precisely the moment that I'm least likely to remember the tools that I've learned, much less use them. I don't even want to go
Mm,
anywhere near
yeah.
the healthy recovery practices that I've
Sure,
learned. When I'm in that
sure.
state, it's as if my brain is unplugged.
Mm,
So before we can even access the things we know can help us, like maybe calling a friend or journaling, um, all kinds of connection, going outside for a walk, like whatever helps you. Like it takes
mm,
quite a miracle to be able to get to the point where you actually
mm.
choose those things, right?
Sure, sure.
And so that's why I saw the need for a simple, in the moment approach you can use anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
And this approach is not trying to overpower urges, it's actually allowing the urges to come and then to go.
Mm,
Because research has shown that if you don't resist, an urge, including sexual urges, it will pass within 30 minutes.
Wow.
What gets really overwhelming is when you try to attack or avoid or ignore those urges, they intensify and they
Okay.
build. And maybe
Okay.
hours later, or even the next day, it feels like it has snowballed or like the train has gone faster and faster and now it's out of control. That's what
Wow.
happens when we give our urges more power by fighting against them
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
it's like, let's face it, let's feel it and let it do what it's supposed to do. And this is
Mm.
what that looks like.
Yeah. I want to hear
Created
this.
a little tool called Boa. And maybe it's arrogant for me to name it after myself. Uh,
Every
at
legend
least it's
needs a good
memorable.
acronym.
Yeah. So it's memorable.
Yeah.
And you can think, what would Drew want me to do? Boa.
Yeah.
Remember that BOA.
No way.
B stands for breathe. Breathing is our superpower of self regulation.
Mm.
It is the quickest, easiest, most efficient way to plug your brain back in
Mm. I love
by
that
flooding it
idea.
with oxygen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not a magic formula, but it can give you a little bubble within to make a decision on purpose.
Yeah. Plugging the brain back in. That's a really great visual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need access to that prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for moral decision making and impulse control. Breathing can bring that back online.
So it's not the answer that some guys think. I breathe. Why didn't everything just get easier? But it sounds like what you're saying
Yeah.
is it brings you back
Mm-hmm.
to a
Right.
baseline.
And there are all kinds of breath work. The
Yeah.
one most people are familiar with is diaphragmatic breathing or deep belly breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very gentle and soothing. Um, but there's also value in power breathing, such as the
Mm-hmm.
Wim Hof method.
Mm.
And I've
Okay.
had experiences where I got super triggered by something that I thought was sexually way too powerful for me. And through power breathing, it almost like deflated the balloon of what I was feeling until
Okay.
wow, I'm okay. So
Yeah.
like that's one that not a lot of people know about, like
Yeah.
taking full, deep, quick breaths that really charge up your
Uh-huh.
system.
Uh-huh.
Um, that's a type of breathing that can also be very helpful.
Okay. And Wim Hof is the Iceman. So for anyone
Yeah.
who's curious, so that might be part of his theory that that works when you're frozen.
Well, the reason why they do breathing while taking an ice bath or doing a
Mm-hmm.
cold plunge
Yeah.
is because it allows you to regulate your nervous
Yeah.
system
Look at that.
to be able to endure
Uh,
extreme temperatures.
wow.
And that same principle holds for being able to endure extreme sexual thoughts and feelings.
Mm, that's so
It's like I can't,
powerful.
it's like in the moment, like I can't handle this thought, I can't handle this feeling, like the tension is too great. That's a similar feeling to when you're like in an ice bath, right?
Cold shower at the very least. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just, we
cold
all
shower. It's
know
like,
that feeling.
can I just get out of the shower? It's like
Yeah.
for some
Yeah.
of us, that's kind of what it feels like. Can I just go
Wow.
masturbate or look at porn or something? And so that's
Hmm.
where breathing comes in.
Wow. That's
Um,
powerful.
it's it's like your first aid,
Yeah. Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Breathing. Whew. And then the O is observe. And observe could also be called mindfulness, non judgmental observation and awareness. And that could be as simple as noticing, what do I see?
Hmm.
What do I hear? What do I touch? And the five senses can be very grounding,
Yeah.
coming back into my body. But then there's also the internal observation of how am I feeling emotionally?
Mhm.
What's happening within me? And simply naming some of those deeper feelings.
Mhm.
This is a crucial step. It's part of many different approaches to relapse prevention.
Hmm.
Um, but instead of just being anxious, it's being with my anxiety. Instead
Yeah.
of just
Yeah.
being aroused, it's being with my arousal.
Hmm.
That that mindful presence
Hmm.
is the opposite of what many of us have learned to do, which is like,
Yeah.
I gotta throw some Bible verses at this temptation. I
Yeah.
I gotta like maybe even go take a cold shower. That's something guys have done. And there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that short term,
Yeah.
but like you gotta move with
Hmm.
rather than move against.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
then
observe.
the
Sorry,
A
just
is
one quick thing. So you're so good, like observing. So externally, internally,
mhm.
because you were mentioning the longings, desires. Is that common for guys to be able to name those when they're observing, or is that usually quite deep?
Well, when you've read Outgrow Porn and maybe when you've worked with
Yeah.
somebody like Shawn or you've done this work for a while, you start to be able to name,
Yeah.
oh, what I really want is something deeper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so that's part of the observation for sure.
Good. Yeah. I've just been transformed by that form of
Yeah.
observation. So awesome.
Yeah.
Continue, my friend, please.
Yeah. So the specific type of person or the specific type of porn that's appealing to me in the moment is probably telling me something that I want underneath the arousal. So observe that. And then the A stands for attune.
Hmm.
Attune is a fancy word, but the most simple way to explain it is that when you have a child that you are parenting or babysitting, like, and the child is crying, attunement and attuning to the child means finding out what does he or she really need in
Hmm.
this moment. They could be crying for any number of reasons.
Yeah.
Do they need a diaper change? Are they tired and they need to sleep? Are they hungry and they need to eat? Are they
Hmm.
lonely and they just need a hug? Or
Wow.
are they hurt and
Hmm.
they need to be able to share about that
Yeah.
and to be heard? Like you can't just see a crying child and stick a pacifier in their mouth.
Yeah.
And tell them to be quiet.
Yeah.
Like attunement means finding out what's really going on,
Hmm.
reading and responding to the real needs.
Yeah. Mm.
So once I've breathed and regulated my nervous system a bit, and then I've practiced observation and I've got some self-awareness, now is the time for self-compassion or self-care
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
order or even self-leadership perhaps
Yeah. Yeah.
to make a choice that's going to meet the real unmet need here.
Yeah. Powerful.
That's
Powerful.
attunement. That's BOA, breathe, observe,
Yeah.
attune. You can do it in 10 minutes or you can do it in 10 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a wonderful gift just for guys to have that simple framework. Call it with what I do, red zone, green zone, BOA. The idea there is observation, attunement, starting with that, plugging the brain back in. That's such a good
Yeah.
visual, man. I love that because that really helps guys. Like that actually helps so much. I think that's what helps guys start to feel not just like, oh, wow, I got over this temptation, but starting to feel more integrous and confident and like they actually understand what's
Yeah.
going on. They start to build like compound interest in their recovery.
Yeah. And it saves you a lot of time and frustration and exhaustion
Yeah.
because if you're trying to uh, stay away from porn, but your brain's not plugged in, like,
Yeah.
please, uh, let's try something different.
Yeah. Oh man. Such a good visual. Drew, you mentioned this idea of collaborating with sexuality. I think you've explained that in different elements already without it being that language. I just wanted to bring that term to the episode because it's such a beautiful term, like collaborating. You again mentioned that like ocean example, wave surfing. I just want to like I would love
Yeah.
to just hear that analogy because I thought it was just bang on.
Yeah. I'll give you an example from my life.
Please.
I once felt that I was so tired and hopeless at about 11 o'clock p.m. that I just wanted to give up on this whole recovery
Mm,
thing.
mm,
And I thought, I have nothing left here. Um, it would have been really easy for me to get out my phone and drift
yeah.
and scroll. Not because I had a positive purpose, but just in order to escape what I was
Hmm.
feeling.
Yeah.
And what do I do with that thought? What do I do with that feeling? I could either try to control it and and overcome it, overpower it, and maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. But in that moment I thought, well, what if I collaborate with it?
Mm,
What if I let this feeling and this urge that really wanted relief, and a
yeah.
sexual relief would have been um, really easy to settle for.
Yeah.
What if I actually allow these feelings to have a greater expression? What if I even go deeper into them? So I got out my guitar
Yeah.
and I wrote this brutally honest song.
Hmm.
It was a lament.
Wow.
It was saying, God, where are you?
Hmm.
Why are you sleeping? You say that you're good. I've got nothing left. Um, Covered in shame. I wrote these lyrics and it turned into a song. I can send you the link if you want, called "The
Yeah.
Lord Will Fight for You."
Hmm.
And it was just venting all of these
Wow.
uncomfortable emotions I didn't want to feel. But the chorus of the song says, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still."
Hmm. Yeah.
That song has sustained me so many times since then. And I never would have written it if I hadn't collaborated with those feelings.
Hmm. Hmm.
And instead of becoming a consumer, just
Yeah.
passively trying to find something on my phone,
Hmm.
I became a creator and a co creator, a collaborator
Yeah.
with my feelings and with God
Yeah.
to find a place to put them that
Wow.
would be purposeful. It turned into a song.
Yeah.
That's my thing. You might have a different outlet for feelings, but the point is, instead of viewing them as negative emotions, as some have called them,
Hmm.
like these are just uncomfortable emotions.
Yeah.
And like freedom comes when I learn how to actually feel them.
Hmm. Yeah.
And and so collaborating with them for me meant I'm going to turn this into a song
Hmm.
that is way more raw and gritty than a
Yeah.
typical worship song.
Yeah. Ah.
You know?
Isn't that the songs we admire the most?
Right?
Right? Isn't
But
that
in
the
the
whole book
moment
of
it felt
Psalms?
like
Yeah.
yeah, in the moment it felt like I'm
Wow.
being
Yeah. Yeah.
a bad Christian,
Sure.
perhaps.
Sure. What about after you wrote that? Like soon after, was it like immediately beneficial time and time again? Did it take some time for you to really believe that that was the right decision to write a song like that?
I was in awe. I didn't share it with
Yeah.
people right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
But like when we when we allow our feelings to lead us into creativity or connection,
Yeah.
or getting what we need, or maybe even into helping someone else.
Mm.
Like, they are not enemies.
Yeah.
They are friends who have been
Yeah.
misunderstood for a long time. And now we get to bring them home.
Yeah. Hmm. Love it. That's so beautiful. What a great example. Thanks for sharing from your own life. I just hope that that really helps people connect with you and your passion for this work and that you're an example of it working. Like I noticed that with guys like you share things with other people, not because it sounds cool and sounds smart, because it's worked and you're passionately teaching it to other people because you see the benefits. So I'd love to know from you, Drew, what are some of the biggest blessings of being free from porn in your life today?
It's a hard question to answer.
I bet.
My suffering has become my superpower.
Hmm. Hmm.
The thing that evil used to try to destroy me, God has used for good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no story that's beyond that.
Hmm.
Um, Everyone listening to this,
Hmm.
you're not too broken. You're not too far behind. You're not too much
Hmm.
or not enough. The greatest blessing, probably, that has come out of this for me is that I know deep in my bones what I tell every one of my podcast listeners at the end of each episode. You are God's beloved son. In you, he is well pleased, delighted, thrilled,
Hmm.
overjoyed, beside himself. In you, he is over the moon. He's
Hmm.
he's simply absolutely where he wants to be when he's with you.
Hmm.
No matter where you are. And when you run away from him, he runs faster
Hmm.
and he runs
Hmm.
after you, and he will continue to do so no matter how long it takes. And that is the gospel, and that is the gift that this work has given to
Wow.
me, probably most of
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. It's beautiful, Drew. Thanks for sharing that. I was curious what you were going to say, and I knew it would be something incredible because I've seen what God's done through many different facets of ups and downs. So you've been a great example of that. For you, Drew, with your book, as we wrap up, just really, making sure guys know about Outgrow Porn. What's the main hope you have for that
Mhm.
book for guys to take things away from it, and where can people get the book?
Yeah. The main hope is to take the best of what's out there on trauma, healing, freedom, neuroscience, and to make it really practical.
Hmm.
I think there are some unique aspects too of studying the specifics of sexual fantasies and learning how to interpret them.
Hmm.
That's another part of the book that I think is really interesting. But it takes it all and makes it really practical. Each chapter has at least one tool that you can try out on your own
Yeah.
to gain momentum and start feeling like you're not just starting another cycle,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
you know, truly outgrowing porn. And that's the word I keep hearing from people, is that it's practical,
Yeah. Yeah.
and also that it's very kind and compassionate in the way that it's set up. It's not cold practicality. It's very warm and
Yeah.
supportive.
Hmm.
So you can get the book on Amazon or at outgrowporn.com to buy directly from me.
Great. Great. And of course, we'll link all that below. Andrew, it's just such a privilege, man, to just to be with you on this episode. You can just feel the integrity coming through the microphone. That's something that I just sense. It's not just, like I said, a bunch of smart words. Like you just have this feeling about what Drew Boa was saying. And that always really spoke to me as I was learning from you and we were growing together. So that's always meant a lot to me.
Thank you so much, Shawn.
You're welcome. Hey, thank you so much for being on the show. It was really an honor to host you, brother.
You too. And you guys can listen to Shawn on the episode that we are
Yes,
recording for my podcast that just came out.
that's right. So thank you so much for tuning in, Drew. Thank you for being here and God bless you.